G'day team, Paul here, and I'm going to go through the top 10 commandments for NDIS providers wanting to actually make a difference, grow a business that helps people, and thrive through the coming changes that are happening at the moment. I'm going to run through these 10. I'd love to know your thoughts and what you think should be on this list, but these are the top 10 things that I've found from chatting with over 1,000 providers and working with several hundred to help them grow their businesses inside the NDIS and care for people. Number 1, thou shalt not spend money on marketing until you can attract clients for free. This is a principle that we use in our programs. The idea here is that if you just start spending money on marketing, you haven't tried and tested the information, the message, the service. And a lot of people get put off about things like Facebook marketing, SEO, and those sort of things. And they say it doesn't work. Well, the proof is in the pudding. It does work, but all of those things rely on a very specific set of processes happening. The message being right, the call to action being right, the landing page being correct, the service being ideal, and the market being ready. So when you can test and prove these things working in an organic or a free method, then putting finances behind it and scaling your reach, paid advertising, is a fantastic tool. But don't spend tens of thousands of dollars until you know the process works. Then you're going to talk to somebody in marketing and have a very clear process to see things grow. Number 2, thou shalt operate lean. Now, this has been quite a big thing because I speak to a lot of providers who are spending money on things that really aren't necessary for where they're at right now. This might be offices just for the sake of having an office. But if you don't need an office, then maybe a co-working space might be an ideal solution, or operating remotely. But if you don't need an office, they can often be a burden on your finances and reduce your profit margin needlessly. Other things like, hiring people that aren't necessary for roles, especially when you have software that can automate things. There are people that I've spoken to who have hired people for administration, but they're already paying for software, or maybe the next level up of software for a couple $100 a month would actually reduce the need for that administration person. So looking for ways to operate lean is going to help you build the profitability of your business. Number 3, thou shalt track thy numbers. One of the beautiful things about measurement and tracking is it puts you in a position to know and understand and ask the right questions. As part of Profitable Provider, my team have to actually provide monthly details on what revenue, profit, number of clients, number of staff, bill hours, these sort of things. Because one of the amazing things that happens when you have this front of mind, you start making decisions that point you in the right direction. This is much like when someone might count calories when they are losing weight. The fact that you now have that front of mind, you make different decisions about the choices you do. If you have these financials in front of you on a regular basis and you can see them, we can then ask great questions like, why did that go up, or why did that go down, and what can we do to improve it? Number 4, thou shalt collaborate on projects and programs. I had the awesome opportunity of being at the Tanya Gomez SIL Summit just recently, and it was amazing to see people like Chris Lapa, the guys from Resolve, all different types of providers there that help NDIS providers, and obviously along with Tanya Gomez and Yasser Zaki and some brilliant people on how we collaborated to help providers grow. And then some of the really key tools that were brought up was how are providers collaborating. I talked about the fact that, for instance, as I actually came from a trades background years ago, if we didn't collaborate, we didn't grow. It was actually a fundamental part of my business, is that collaboration was key on projects like renovations and builds. So This is a fundamental part of any business. And obviously, when we're talking about supporting someone, there are multiple providers that are needed in order to provide support. So collaboration was key. But also looking at, right, well, if there is a project that we're working on, how could we collaborate with others? If we want to put together a program, could we improve that? Could we even collaborate on a sill house? We've seen that actually work fantastically with the right things in place. Collaboration opens you up to a new market, it puts you in front of new people, and it builds trust very quickly inside the industry. Number 5, thou shalt not frenzy hire. This has been a massive issue for a lot of providers. When they see a problem, they all of a sudden hire someone in administration or operations or something like that. And what that does is it overweights the business at the top end very quickly. And what often can take place is roles aren't really clearly defined, outcomes aren't really defined, the right conversations aren't had. So what we want to do is actually have a calm way of developing, planning the growth, not going, there's a problem right now, I need to find someone to solve that problem and just pay them to do it. Because when the plan is in place, we can know when that hire is going to be, what that hire will be, and what the outcomes of that role should be and the deliverables, especially when it comes to a non-client facing role like administration, a client liaison, operations, these types of roles. Number 6, know thy culture. We have a lot of businesses in the space that have grown fantastically and done amazing things. And as that happens, the owner often has less to do with support as their managing team and their growing strategy and all these sorts of things. That creates an issue where the culture then becomes separated from the owner and people start to rise up as the dominant culture leaders in the business. And if you're not careful, that can bring in the wrong culture. And often we see businesses that started with a fantastic ethos in mind, but have drifted. This is called mission drift. And it's a documented issue that many large organizations over time and all over the world have experienced. You, as the owner of the business, you dictate the culture, because culture always comes from the top down. So looking at ways to actually develop culture in your business and have it maintained, developing culture kings and queens inside of your business is absolutely key. Number 7, thou shalt get results and measure them. With the idea of being an NDIS provider, you have goals and results as part of the funding. And what we're seeing a lot of, obviously right now, is the government calling to point on what is the funding actually doing. And if you can't prove things are happening, then you're not going to get funding. Well, as a business, it's your job to get results for people, where it's your job to have that information accessible and measurable. We can actually track a participant's goals, and that creates a lot of benefit. It means that when reviews come up, the information is there to be able to get the right funding for the next roll through. It means that you have information there that shows you're getting results, and it shows information that you can use, for instance, with consent around marketing, because you can say, we get results for people in this specific area, and you become the expert in that sort of a niche. The idea is that you as a provider need to get results. I don't know if you remember the idea of long division in school, where you couldn't just write the answer, you had to show your work. This principle, show your work, providers. Number 8, thou shalt be ahead of the curve. There are a lot of changes happening, and one of the things we've seen really, really often inside the NDIS is that since its inception, lots of businesses have come into the NDIS and started. Now, that's great for participants with all new types of services being available, new providers. It's not just limited to the numbers that are there. However, a lot of people have come in since the NDIS started, and that is all that they know. And so they know that funding money, they know how that works. One of the most important things you can do as a business owner that provides care is understand a couple of key things. You are not an NDIS business. NDIS is simply a funding model that people use for your support. You might be a mental health business or a nursing business or a housing business using the NDIS funding model. So with that in mind, you need to know what happens when that funding model changes or becomes issues. So you need to be educated. You need to be educating yourself and staying ahead of the curve, not being upset when things change. You need to be at the front and deciding, well, as things change, how do we maintain care for our clients? What other models should we be looking at? And how can we continue to innovate our business and be ahead of the curve? Which brings us to number 9, thou shall innovate. Innovation is absolutely key to the growth of any business. We saw this with a number of businesses. And if you remember, as you are possibly as old as I am to remember Blockbuster, when we used to go down and actually get DVDs and even VHS tapes from the store and hire them out for a set period of time. And if you were lucky, that new release you wanted was actually there. As digital platforms started to rise and the internet started to rise, they were given an offer to invest in a company called QuickFlix, which then became Netflix, which they didn't do because they didn't see the need to innovate. We're a Blockbuster now. Well, now we see Netflix is the number 1 streaming platform. That could have been a great way for them to move forward. In the same realm, are you set in your ways and aren't able to see what the changes are coming? And are you leading the way, or are you set back in what was happening 2-3 years ago? Because the NDIS has clearly changed. So how are you leading the way? Who are you bringing with you, and how are you helping the industry develop? The government needs good providers to lead the way, to show what's possible, and to develop a platform that is going to work for years to come that gets results. You need to innovate. Providers need to innovate in this space and create new paths forward. Number 10, last one, thou shall raise the bar. We need providers to operate above the minimum operating procedure. You know, there is a certain amount of compliance and all those sorts of things that need to happen. Absolutely. But if you're meeting the minimum requirements, great. So you should. It's like advertising a car for sale. Guess what? This car has 4 wheels and it has seat belts. It's even got a radio. Well, I would hope so. They're types of things it should have. What is the thing that you do that is raising the bar? How are you providing the next level of support? Where are you leading the way as a business? How can you raise the bar for providers everywhere? The rule here is that as things get harder, less people do them. So are you going to level up and do the harder things, or are you going to maintain the simplicity and possibly find it very difficult to operate? I'd love to know from you which of these 10 stand out to you at the moment. What else do you think should be included on this list? And I would love to have a conversation around this. Speak to you soon. Bye.